Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the final session of the conference. It's an absolute pleasure to be chairing this final session. And just before I get into the session itself, could I just say what a privilege it's been for NFU Mutual to be the platinum sponsor of the Agritourism Conference. It's a real pleasure and honour to have done that. Thank you for all the mentions and name checks NFU Mutual's had over the last couple of days, particularly referencing the risk management services business, which I hope you're finding useful. And if you haven't already discovered it, then perhaps speak to your local agency office and they'll point you in the right direction for that. I guess we're ensuring 75% of UK agriculture and probably about 80% of the actual production from UK agriculture. So we should know, the guys and the girls on the ground should know what is concerning you and where the difficult spots are. So hopefully when it comes to the diversification and the agritourism aspects of your business, we would hope to think we're on the front foot with that and being able to help you to navigate through the various pitfalls in the areas you need to have covered. So that's something to speak to your local agents about. And thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to be here and to further engage with farmers. This session, as you know, is putting meat on agritourism menus. I'm reading that directly off the screen here, so I know that's definitely what it's about. 50% of agritourism farms in Scotland are looking to offer a food and drink offering by 2030. That's part of the national agritourism strategy, which we're all signed up to. There's a high demand from consumers to buy direct from a farmer and to eat from the farm produce while people are on the farm, and we know that itself raises lots of challenges. There's a huge amount of interest in this area and a lot of interest from farmers in selling meat and indeed other produce direct to customers. We've got three excellent speakers this morning to lead us through this area. We've got Nikki Pollock from Ardross Farm just in Fife. We've got Louise Urquhart from Louise's Farm Kitchen at Milton of Auchenhove, and we've got Kate Rowell, also a farmer and vet herself, but chair of Quality Meat Scotland in her role this morning. Just before we get into that, I want to also mention one other comment I was going to make around passion. We've heard lots of inspiring and indeed humbling stories over the last couple of days, really giving me a lot of enthusiasm. Success is only limited, ladies and gentlemen, by the imagination and drive of the individual. And I wanted just to take that imagination and drive theme to Caroline Miller, the irrepressible force of nature behind everything that we've done in the last 2 days, but indeed behind the whole agritourism agenda in Scotland. And just to give great credit to you, Caroline, for everything that you have done and continue to do for this industry. So well done to you. So if I could start by introducing Nikki Pollock. Again, she's no stranger to this room. Nikki is the sector destination leader for Fife. She's a farmer, a farmer's daughter, a farmer's wife, runs and a farming mother, runs Ardross Farm along with her family. They're farming around 1,200 acres in the East Neuk of Fife. Ardross Farm shop was opened in 2005, and of course Nikki is also farming with her husband on their own farm nearby at Auchtermuchty. Ardross specialises in life certified beef, lamb and mutton, also producing their own veg and their own honey, all of which are then sold direct to the customers. So Nikki, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. As destination leader, I was asking people for feedback yesterday. How were the speakers? How was it going? And the feedback I got was the speakers were excellent, fully agree. They were inspiring and they were hilarious, which is terrible feedback for somebody who has to go on the next day. So I've spent last night Googling how to be funny. So the last 2 days, I hope you will agree, I think you will definitely agree, have been very inspiring. And that is down to Caroline and her team. They are so good at putting the right people in the right place and just letting the magic happen. And I'm incredibly proud to be a destination leader and to be part of this. As you'll have seen over the last 2 days, Scottish Agritourism is here to support, to nurture and to enhance what we are all doing on the ground. We've said this numerous times. Oh, I've got a clicker, hold on. there you go, that one of our objectives is to have 1,000 farms, crofts and estates in agritourism by 2030, and of those we would like 50% of them to be providing food direct to their customer. This infamous Italy trip, I was on the first one. It was really serious, we didn't drink and we had no fun at all. What we did do was we visited lots of farms, and the common theme was that every single one of them had food as part of their experience. I'm sure everybody in this room associates Italy with fantastic food, and it's no coincidence that Italian cuisine is on all visitors from all over the world's thoughts. Food tourism and agritourism is on the Italian government's agenda. This is very similar here in Scotland now, thanks to Caroline and her team. And as Vicky from Visit Scotland said earlier, that there's an increasing consumer demand for food experiences on farms and buying direct from a farmer. Food is key to everything in society, and farms play a key role in connecting people to where their food comes from and for good tourism experiences. However, everyone in this room will know that getting local food onto plates of visitors isn't as easy as it seems. Especially true when it comes to retailing your meat direct. And the problem surrounding abattoirs is just one of the aspects to barriers to selling direct. And we had a great discussion earlier, which covered most of my talk in the breakout rooms. So apologies for anyone who's heard this already. But first of all, why am I standing here telling you about selling food direct? My family first started Ardross Farm back in 2005, so we've been dealing direct with the consumers for 17 years. We farm at Ardross Farm, which is in the East Neuk of Fife, between Ely and St Monans, on the banks of the Firth of Forth. We're tenant farmers. We also do contracting over around about 1,400 acres. We have cattle, sheep, cereals, beans, oilseed rape. I should know this is our farm. We also do vegetables, and we have a farm shop. So back in 2005, my mum and dad, Rob and Fiona Pollock, they decided that they were fed up supplying the middlemen. We were supplying vegetables and we were supplying meat direct to the supermarkets, and we just couldn't make ends meet. They came up with the idea of selling meat direct. I have two sisters, and all three of us told mum and dad we were crazy. They'd lost the plot. Who on earth would come to a farm to buy meat when you could just go to your local supermarket? I'm happy to say that we were completely wrong, and our tiny farm shop, which was literally a calculator, mum's kitchen table, one freezer and a cow chain on the door, has grown beyond all of our expectations. We now sell all of our cattle direct through the shop, which equates to roughly 2 a week, depending on the season. We sell all of our lambs, which again is roughly 3 a week, and we also sell mutton. We do a side a week. So everything that we produce on the farm is sold direct to consumers. We also take great pride in supporting lots of other local businesses, and especially so other local farms. We support people like Hugh Grierson Organic, Summer Harvest Oils, Summer House Drinks, the Buffalo Farm, Grangemere with their broccoli and their strawberries, and it's a key part to what we do. We've removed ourselves from the grip of the supermarkets, and we no longer retail vegetables to them. We do it direct to our consumers, but that's a whole other story, and I've got 17 minutes. We're delighted to have gained quite a lot of awards along the way. We got Britain's Best Farm Shop in the Farm Shop and Deli Awards. We got the Best Local Food Producer in the Menu Awards. And most recently, we were very humbled to get the AgriScot Diversified Farm of the Year. But it's not been easy. It's been a hard road to get to where we are. And I'd like to talk you through a few things that we have learned along the way. If you're deciding to retail your meat, some things to consider. And hopefully I'm not going to bore you all too much if you're already doing it. So Vicky covered this a little bit. We're all experts in knowing our finishing animals and also in growing fantastic food. But what we're perhaps not very good at is looking at it from a different angle, a marketing angle, from the customer's perspective. So the very first thing that I would urge you to do is to find out who your customer is going to be and why they would want to buy your meat. People are genuinely interested in where their food comes from, and they want to hear your story. Even if you've got a captive audience, if they're buying your steaks and they're staying in your accommodation, the story is really important. We think it's normal. To other people, it's exceptional and special. Is it a family farm? Are you a new entrant? Are you farming in a national park? Has the farm been in your family for generations? Are you Pasture for Life certified, organic? Are you rare breeds, native breeds? Do you feed your cattle beer? There's all sorts of things that make you different and unique. Another thing to consider is that as farmers, we're really good at finishing animals. However, depending on what you're doing and who you're selling to, you might need a steady supply of animals throughout the year. It might surprise you to learn that at Ardross we calve 3 times a year, and in fact last year there was not a month in the year that we didn't have a calf born, and that was to supply our shop consistently with finished animals. So you've worked out your target market, you've worked out roughly how many animals you would like to sell direct. The next thing you need to do is find an abattoir. Pause. We all know there aren't very many abattoirs left. Sadly, Downfield in Fife has just closed its doors. When we started, we used to go to St Andrews. That was 20 minutes from the field to slaughter for our animal. That was just 20 minutes that it had to be in a trailer. That was 20 minutes that we had to pay somebody to take, and it was not very much wear and tear on our trailers. St Andrews closed its doors, so we moved to Dunblane. And then sadly, Dunblane closed their doors, so we were at Shotts. Shotts are excellent at what they do, and we have a great relationship with them. But the downside is that we weekly have a 3-hour drive with our animals to the abattoir. That's 3 hours a week I need to pay somebody to sit in a van. That's also the wear and tear on our vehicles and our trailers. So the second thing you need to work out is what abattoir you're going to use and how you're going to transport your animal there. And the next decision there is that you need to hang your animal, or do you? This was something as a family we'd never really thought about, but quickly realised that the foodie customers are expecting your animals to be hung. There's various options available to you. However, much of that will depend on the slaughterhouse and the butcher that you're using. If you're wanting to hang your animal for 21 plus days, that takes space that your slaughterhouse or your butcher is going to have. That will take space, but it will also take money. You need to pay for that animal to hang there. Some butchers like to butcher the lower cuts immediately, so that's your mince and your stew. That can get taken out immediately, and then you just hang your fillets, your ribeyes, and your sirloins. Other butchers will urge you to butcher everything immediately, put it in vacuum packed bags, and then age it. That's called wet aging, and quite often that's what the supermarkets do. All 3 of these options are great, but it's a discussion that you need to have with the slaughterhouse and the butcher on how you're going forward, because it really impacts who you use. So you've slaughtered your animal, and the next thing you need to do is get transportation to your butcher. And I think this is quite often where the link falls. There are really good businesses working out of slaughterhouses, but if you're remote, if your butcher is off the trail a little bit, then it's going to be slightly harder. So you also need to work this out before you start. So assuming you've done all this and you've got it back to the butcher, the next decision you need to make is what cuts to get back, and that's incredibly important. So this is where you really need to know your customer. Are they young and inexperienced, and cooking ready meals will be ideal? Have you got a foodie that really wants unusual cuts, long slow cuts, or different meats like mutton? Are your customers staying in a pod for the weekend and they just really want sausages and burgers to cook on your barbecue? Are you doing meat boxes? You'll need a huge selection of cuts for your meat boxes. And also, what time of year is it? Is it the summer, in which case you're needing chops, steaks, burgers, sausages? In the winter, you need those turned into stews, casseroles, and roasts. It's really important to consider all of this. One of the hardest things that we found in our business was carcass balance, and we hadn't considered it before we started. In the first few years, we thought we were doing brilliantly. It was easy. Fillets, sirloins, ribeyes flew out the door, not a problem. Mince, everyone needs mince, that was fine. It was a few months later that Dad took us through to the storeroom and opened up 4 chest freezers and showed us they were all full of stew. Maybe we weren't doing so well. It was definitely not on our business plan to stock hundreds of pounds worth of stew in a freezer. So it was at that point that a local butcher came and told us that we were being ridiculous, that we needed to add value to our produce. We needed to make steak pies. So Mum started making steak pies. They flew out the door. It was going really well. But then we had mince to look that was backing up. Started making mince rounds. Then after that, it was winter. Nobody wanted sausages and burgers. So we started making meatballs, beef olives, Scotch pies, ready meals. The list goes on. We built a commercial kitchen to do this, just so we could keep a balance on what we were selling. But it was also really good that we could end up using our whole animal. And again, that's key to us all making a profit. The kitchen enabled us to bring the fat back from the butcher. We now render it down and we make it into beef drippings. We roast the bones. We make it into soups, into stocks. Every single part of that animal needs to be used for you to make the profit. Anyway, I'm digressing slightly, and we all need to know how to make money. The next thing you need to do is decide on pricing, and obviously this is very important. We find this incredibly hard as a business. Your butchers will be able to advise you, but we spend a long time looking at online retailers, local butchers, supermarkets, and the Scottish Craft Butchers Association are also a great help. Obviously, getting your price is really important. At the end of the day, we're all trying to make a profit. You will have invoices for the slaughterhouse, for transportation and for the butcher, and this is just a small part of the spreadsheet that we use on a daily basis to analyse all this. But there's all the hidden costs. I've already mentioned it, the wear and tear on your vehicles, the price you pay the farm, the electricity that it costs to store your meat in, and also your time. Never undervalue your time. If this enterprise takes off, then all of these are going to build up, and it's incredibly hard to increase your prices once you've set them. For most of us who don't have butchers on site, the next thing that you need to do is make sure that your butcher has a vacuum packer, and not all of them do. If you don't have a butcher on site, your presentation is key. You don't have that butcher selling your cuts. So you need labels. They need to be straight. This sounds silly, but you don't need extra plastic on your vacuum packing. Presentation is key for everything that you do. So it was at this point 2 nights ago that I was running through this with my husband, and I looked up and he was fast asleep. So there's nobody asleep, I don't think, and I'm nearly at the end. So finally, you need to collect the meat from your butcher, and for that, you need insulated boxes, polystyrene boxes, or your butcher might be able to deliver it. When you're home, you need fridges and freezers, and you need to check those twice a day for the temperatures for environmental health. These are all basic things, but you need to think about them before you even start the process. So because we're last on, a lot of this has been said before, but within agritourism, we have amazing examples of people who are already doing this. Alison Younger from Old Lecky Farm, just outside Stirling, is doing this very well in a subscriptions way. She sells her produce through catering and also direct sales to the community. We heard a fantastic talk from Lindsay yesterday. She uses Barra Abattoir and she does meat boxes and farm tours. She gives them a taste of her produce after the farm tour. Despite a 3-hour round trip to her butcher, Fiona Scott from Fern Farm is also doing meat boxes. And I would urge you to take advantage of us all being here today. We're all great to share and we all love sharing, so please speak to people. For us, selling our own meat has made our business viable. Although we are one business, we do an internal transfer. The shop pays the farm for the meat. We pay them for the cattle, the lambs and the ewes at market value. However, my sister, who's in that picture there, is the one that determines the grade of her animal. So every week, regardless of what goes to abattoir, she gets top price. But it's really important that your farm makes money and your shop makes money. You're not robbing Peter to feed Paul. Both aspects of your business still need to make money. It's not easy, and I really hope I've not bored you with all the logistics. The first animal is the hardest, but once you've got all these things set up, it's really quite easy. It's all set in place, and you just need to get your animals there. And the feedback makes it worthwhile. We are now getting feedback from every single part of the chain, from the abattoir, from the butcher, and from our customers. This feedback is invaluable, and it feeds directly onto everything that we're doing on the ground on our farm. We've moved to Pasture for Life certified. All of our animals are 100% grass-fed, and that was because our customers wanted us to be more sustainable and they were very interested in grass-fed. We changed our breed of cattle, something smaller and something hardier, due to the butchery and the abattoir feedback. The huge blonde Aquitaine cattle that we started with were too big to put into lorries. They were too big to handle, too big to hang, and the butchers were really struggling to handle them. The feeling that we get when a customer leaves a review raving about our meat and recommending people shop direct is indescribable. A check in the post for the market is great, but nothing competes to direct feedback and that money straight in your pocket. Yes, it is a target of Scottish Agritourism to have 50% of farms to provide their own produce as part of a direct farm retail, a day visit or an overnight stay. From a strategy point of view and from a tourism point of view, that's great. Visitors are crying out for authentic experiences outside in the fresh air with a genuine food and drink offering. However, in all honesty, whether you do a beef box, a farm shop, whether you've got a restaurant, I'd urge you to do it. Farming's getting an incredibly hard time at the moment. The supermarkets are putting pressure on an incredibly fragile supply chain. The press are slamming agriculture and seem to be framing us as the sole cause of climate change. And the mood in farming is really quite low. By bringing people onto our farms, by showing them firsthand what we do every day, by letting them taste the world-class produce that we produce and experiencing our way of life, we can do our own marketing. People want to engage. People genuinely want to try our produce. We just need to let them do it, and we all need to shout about it. Apart from anything, the sense of satisfaction in rearing your own meat and knowing firsthand that customers really appreciate it is second to none, and it can only add to our sense of place as farmers. Thank you.
Well done. Nikki, thank you so much for that really inspirational talk, and I'm sure it's raised lots of questions. I would urge you to make a note of your questions, ladies and gentlemen, and keep them till the end. We'll have an opportunity then for questions later on. You raised so many interesting topics there, not least bringing to life the unique nature of the red meat industry as a supply chain that is fundamentally a disassembly process. It's not like making anything else. You're taking an animal and you're breaking it down into its constituent parts, trying to make the most value you can out of every cut you can sell and get rid of the other parts with the least cost you possibly can. It's a central part of the model, and I'm sure we'll come to more of that later indeed, including the availability of abattoirs and processing near to where we're all operating. Our next speaker is Louise Urquhart, Louise's Farm Kitchen, and as Louise says in no particular order, she's a farmer's daughter, a wife, a farmer, a mother of her two amazing girls aged 9 and 7, a small business owner, a retailer, and someone who is self-evidently not afraid to get her sleeves rolled up and get on with doing stuff. Louise tells me that on leaving school, and indeed it's in your pack, she studied agriculture and business management at Aberdeen University, graduating with her BSc in honours before returning home to the family farm to farm with her grandfather, father and brother. So another very typical example of the intergenerational businesses that so many of us are involved in. In 2013, a nearby tenancy came up and Louise went into partnership with her husband, farming beef, lamb and pork in Bankery. I'm not going to take any more of Louise's thunder. Louise, over to you.
Hello, and thank you very much for having me along to talk today. I'm Louise Urquhart. I run Louise's Farm Kitchen with my husband Aaron, and it brings my two passions, food and farming, together. I am going to briefly summarise our journey over the last few years with you today. I think when Caroline was looking for someone to discuss the challenges of farming and diversifying into agritourism, she has certainly chosen well today, as we certainly have faced our fair share of challenges over the years, and Louise's Farm Kitchen was born out of a challenging period on farm, and an opportunity was seized. We didn't at the time know where it would go and if it would go anywhere, but here I am, standing here right now, a way to tell you about our journey. I don't want to dwell too much on our farming story, but it is an important part of how we have come to where we are today. In 2013, a tenancy came up at a farm 4 miles from our door. It was an opportunity not to be missed, and we threw our hats into the ring, and we were lucky, or thought we were very lucky, to have our bid accepted. We brought home our first daughter in the middle of February, and 4 days later, we brought home a few hundred in lamb yows. And 10 days post-birth, I was out heptavacking, as you do. And that was the start of my farming partnership with my husband, Adam. In 2014, we were chosen as one of the QMS grazing group hosts, which was a fantastic experience, and we gained so much from it. And I would just like to congratulate all of the new host QMS monitor farms, a few of them of which are here today. We were very glad of the support that came with being a QMS grazing group host during our time at Maryfield, as it was not all plain sailing. The new flock was established, but we soon started encountering a few problems over time, with far too many empty yows at scanning, lambs not finishing, and a lot of head scratching. We tested for various things like MV, but they were all ruled out. Meanwhile, I had a 30th birthday coming up, and I had decided that, having had nothing to do with pigs previously, that I wanted to do a hog roast. But not just any pig. Me being me, I wanted to finish a pig for myself. So we got 8 weaners from a friend, and that was the start. We finished these 8 pigs. 1 was kept for the hog roast, with the other 7 butchered and sold to friends and family, who thoroughly enjoyed them. And it encouraged me to do some more, as no one else was doing good quality pork from the farm gate. And at the time, we were struggling to get lambs finished, and cash flow was very seasonal. So this led us to think, if we could generate a wee bit extra income from selling direct, that it wouldn't fix all our problems, but it certainly couldn't do any harm. So in 2016, I set up a Facebook page called Louise's Farm Kitchen, with the idea to share recipes and let people know when our next meat boxes were available. Because we were not producing meat regularly, it was really difficult initially to get into farmers' markets, as a lot of them already had regular producers and not any spaces. At the time, I was also working part-time at the local vets, which required some Saturdays, so I couldn't get out and about to the people. But I thought, what if the people came to me instead? So this gave me the idea of hosting our own pop-up shop days. And that was in 2017. And it was a bit of a daunting time. I thought, well, what if nobody comes? But we had nothing else to lose. We didn't have to go anywhere or be anywhere. We were at home, so we gave it a go. And I think in 2018 they became more frequent, and we were able to do them once a month because we had more stock coming through. We didn't have a lot of money to invest into our wee sideline, we decided to utilise what we did have, and we opened up our farmhouse kitchen during the pop-up shop days, offering teas and coffees and freshly baked scones to all that came. And like many farmhouse kitchen tables, it became my place of business, where deals were done. My experience in retail up until this point was, as I mentioned previously, was working as a receptionist at the local vets. So I was very used to Mrs. Smith coming in and grumbling about the price of her worming tablet for her cat. As a result, I would often find myself apologising to my customers that were coming into my kitchen to buy my wares. And I would often hear myself saying to them, I am so sorry, this comes to such and such. Until one day I was standing there, apologising to my customer, as I did, and I had a light bulb moment. The penny was starting to finally drop. And a wee voice popped inside my head, and I had to have a word with myself. I said, Louise, these folk are coming month in and month out. They are wanting to buy your meat, and they value the work that goes into it, and are happy to pay. So stop apologising. And I think at that moment was a real turning point for me, and I started maybe to value the work we were doing a little bit more. Sometimes I think as farmers we are our own barrier, and perhaps not that confident in dealing with the public because it's all a bit alien to us. And I think my advice to you, if you're just starting out your journey in agritourism, would be to believe in yourself and believe in your product. And if people keep coming back, you're doing a good job. I have now been putting myself out there for 5 to 6 years now, and it's only now that I'm getting a wee bit more comfortable with it and we're having a wee bit of fun. Now I've got my farmer hat on for this next part, and another point I would like to make is that as farmers, we are our own worst enemy when it comes to pricing and what we do, or as others do as food producers. Because as well as direct sales, we do hog roasts and barbecues. This year we saw them come back in full swing, and we have sent out many quotes and nearly all of them have been accepted, apart from those that went out to fellow farmers, auctioneers, or links in some way to our industry. So some food for thought. I think most of them would know the price of a ton of feed, so it was a little bit disappointing. You know, they should know some of the costs that go into the work. And as farmers, we are producing good quality food and nutrition. And I think if we don't value what we are producing as an industry, then how can we really expect others to? So I'll just leave you with that wee thought there, because I don't know the answer to that one. And then I'll take you back to 2018. We had decided enough was enough for our tenancy. During our time at Maryfield, we discovered that the soils were unbalanced and it was going to take a lot of money to try and correct them. Money that we did not have, as empty ewes don't leave the best return. So we got rid of the sheep and we kept the pigs, and we both went back to our family farms. With the change in farming operations, we really threw ourselves into focusing on Louise's farm kitchen, as we started our tenancy with nothing and we'd left with a lot of debt. With demand growing for our products, in 2019, we decided to apply for the Food and Processing Marketing Grant to set up our own butchery. We found out early March 2020 that we were successful just as the pandemic was hitting, with farmers' markets and events being cancelled left, right and centre. We were really not sure whether to go ahead with the butchery or not, but we did. COVID didn't do our business any harm, thankfully. We already had a website up and running, so folk could place orders. The website had been up and running a few years previous, and I think in total over that couple of years, we'd maybe taken 100 orders through it. During 2020, we took 1,000 orders through the website. So I was really glad we had that facility in place before everything kicked off. We changed our pop-up shop days to click and collect, which worked really well, and our butchery became operational in October 2020. So in the last 2 years, we have butchered everything on farm, and this year, currently, we have 4 employees, and we've started to do some contract butchery for other farmers. Our pop-up shop is still our bread and butter and is growing and growing in popularity. And we also do farmers markets and the hog roasts and things instead. So that's our wee story and our journey into agritourism. But how can you start your journey into selling meat direct? First steps, I think, are to contact your local authority and speak to the environmental health team. They are there to offer advice and help on any questions you have. Each authority may have slightly different rules or ways of doing things, so it is best to find out from them what they are looking for before you're doing anything else. If you're getting a butcher to pack your meat for you, you probably don't have to do that much, and it's probably not as daunting as you might think, so it is worth just having a chat with somebody and seeing what they're expecting. Abattoirs. They are a vital piece of the jigsaw. With facilities few and far between, you might find yourself limited with choice. We have used 5 different abattoirs in our short time over the years. Our first pigs went to Rhines of Elgin. It sadly closed its doors not long after that. Munro's in Dingwall we sometimes use for bigger pigs such as cull sows. Our main abattoir is Miller's of Speyside. Pre-COVID, we used Scott Beef at Inverurie for our lambs, and then we had to use Downfield in Cooper before Miller's got their licence for sheep. So again, Miller's of Speyside are our main abattoir. For us to get to Miller's, it is just over 100 miles round trip and takes about 4 hours out of our day. To get to Munro's is a 200-mile round trip and takes up most of your day. So logistics can be a right pain. Abattoirs, they're often short-staffed as well and undervalued, but they are 110% vital to our industry, and without access to them, I certainly wouldn't have a business today. Butchers. During our initial years, we used a few different butchers. Again, the usual story that I know some of you here can relate to. As we got busier, the butchers didn't have enough time to do our work, so we had to go on and find another one. That really pushed us on and made the decision of having our own butchery a no-brainer. However, that's not to say it doesn't come with its own challenges. This year, when we were advertising for a full-time butcher, we had just one applicant. So how do we make butchery a more attractive career? Because again, there is a shortage in the industry. And again, I'm not sure the answer to that one. Opportunities. There are so many opportunities there. You just need to look and think about what could fit into what you are already doing. As well as selling our own pork and lamb and beef, we've diversified into free-range pasture-raised chicken. We run it as a subscription service and have a chicken crew. It's working really well, and it's a great add-on to what we're doing already. It is very labour-intensive, and we are only doing them during the summer months. It's something that probably wouldn't suit everyone, but it is working well for us and our customer base. And remember, if it was easy, then everyone would be doing it. Thank you for having me along today to speak about our agritourism business. And I'd also like to thank Aaron for putting up with my ideas, and without him, I certainly wouldn't be able to do half of what we have done. And if I can start my business from the kitchen table, literally, then so can you. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Another inspiring talk. What can be done with enthusiasm, passion, and finding the knowledge as you go along. Staff availability is an issue across the whole sector, and indeed it's not unique to agriculture or indeed unique to Scotland, but it's something that we'll maybe also be looking to talk about later on when we get to the Q&A. But self-belief and confidence, 100 orders to 1,000 orders during COVID, Louise. It's very impressive stats. Our third and final speaker is Kate Rowell. Again, she'll be no stranger to this room. Kate is chair of Quality Meat Scotland, but she's also a farmer, a qualified vet, farms with her husband Ed in the Borders, where they run about 750 hectares on Hurdles Hope Farm, so quite a large enterprise there with 800 sheep. It's a business that's been in Kate's family for over 150 years. Kate is also involved in other areas. She's past president of People's Agricultural Society, a life member of RAS, member of the NSA, and indeed went through the Rural Leaders Programme, again with great success. Kate, over to you.
Thanks very much, Jim, for that introduction. I'm realising that my bio is probably slightly out of date, and I need to up it a little bit. Thank you all very much for what has been an absolutely inspiring conference. It's great. I was saying to some people last night, it's great to see so many women in the room. Often the things I go to are predominantly male. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's nice not to be in the minority for once. And it's great to see the sort of demographic, age-wise, of the people in this room and the positive attitude more than anything else. It's absolutely fantastic. So I've had a brilliant time. We don't do any agritourism at home. I'm going to go home and start nipping at my husband to see what sort of opportunities we could take there. and we'll see where we go. So I might be back next year sitting in the audience as a member. You never know. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about QMS. I've got my QMS hat on today. Very quickly, for anybody that doesn't know what QMS is, it's the red meat levy body in Scotland. We're an NDPB, which means that we are not government, but we are audited like government, so that we provide value for money, for the levy money. And the money that we have to play with is only from farmers and processors. That's how we're funded, by levy. We do get occasional government grants for specific projects, like the Monarch Farm project that Louise mentioned, but that is a specific grant for a specific purpose. The main bulk of our money is coming from levy, from farmers and processors. And we are quite a small team at QMS. There are only 29 employees, and to put that into perspective, our sister organisation in New Zealand, Beef and Lamb New Zealand, has over 120 employees. So we have a small team, but they work really, really hard on behalf of the red meat sector. And we have a finite budget. We have an amount of money that we are able to spend. It looks like big money when you're sitting on a farm, but in the grand scheme of things, £7 million, it doesn't go that far, and we have to work really cleverly to make the most of that for all of our levy payers. And we're made up of 6 different departments. They kind of speak for themselves. Brands Integrity is the arm that administers the quality assurance schemes. And the quality assurance schemes are the bedrock of what we do at QMS. That's probably the thing that everybody knows us for more than anything else. They are whole of life and whole of supply chain. And what I try to tell every single person that I'm speaking to about this is that means if you see these rosettes on your meat anywhere, it means that it's been born, reared and processed in Scotland. It's never left a farm that hasn't been assured. It's gone on lorries that have been quality assured through markets that are quality assured, and ended up in a processor that's quality assured. So you can say with absolute integrity, and we have the proof to back it up, that if you buy meat that's Scotch beef, Scotch lamb or specially selected pork, you can be guaranteed it's local, you can be guaranteed it's high animal welfare, and you can be guaranteed it's Scottish. We'd like to evolve the scheme. That's the next steps, to take in things like sustainability, and that's something that is a work in progress. And you're all very lucky you're able to speak to your consumers direct and explain things. What we try to do for the rest of the farmers who haven't got that business model is we try to be that voice where we can have that conversation with the consumer on their behalf and reassure the consumer of all the things that they're concerned about. So everybody else has done a really good job of summing up a lot of the challenges. These are some of the challenges that I identified, and you've heard about all of them. And if you need to get if we are working towards this 50% target, we will all need to work together on these issues. There is no silver bullet for any of these things, and it's something that we will all need to work together on. I'm going to go through each of these just briefly to say what QMS can help with in these situations. But it's really important to remember that there are so many opportunities out there. The past couple of days have shown me just how much opportunity there is out there if we can just get our act together, work together and make the most of them. So the first topic is abattoirs, which have already been mentioned extensively, and apologies, we don't have the island abattoirs on here, in particular Mull, so very sorry to Flora. We did think at the time it was true that Mull wasn't operating, but it's back up and running now. And as we heard in our breakout session this morning, and something I didn't know was how much business Mull Abattoir does from the mainland. It's not just an island abattoir for that island. They take in stock from all over the place. So they should be on there. There's not many of them, but they are up and down the country. In particular, places like Wishaw have a new cutting service, which was launched quite recently by Jim Alexander, and that's purely for farmers and crofters. John Scott Meats have got 2 butchers on full time doing farm produce and private kill, and Shotts, Monroe's, Millers and Lockerbie all do private kill as well as do Mull. And there are also obviously the other island abattoirs. There's Shetland, and there are the ones in the Western Isles and Islay. from what I can gather, they're probably a bit more locally based. But please, if there's MD here and I'm wrong on that, please make sure and correct me at the end. So this problem with abattoirs was recognised as an issue in the recent beef sector strategy that was brought together by industry and facilitated by QMS. And there is a recommendation within that to fund a private kill coordinator to work with the larger plants to develop opportunities. So this was really quite exciting because this came from the Processors Association themselves. The problem you've got with big abattoirs is that to put in 2 cattle from Caroline on a Monday afternoon, 6 sheep from me on a Tuesday morning, Jim with his goat on a Thursday afternoon, you know, it's really difficult for them to manage that logistically, really difficult, and they don't have the time or the energy to do that. What they do have is they do have the capacity, a lot of them, to do that, but they need somebody else to organise it. So that was recognised in the beef sector strategy, and it was them that came to us with this idea to fund a contract and private kill coordinator. So at the moment, the beef sector strategy is sitting with the beef leadership group. They have just started work on that to drive forward the recommendations and actually get something out of it. And I was assured just last night that the small abattoir and abattoir capacity issues are in the top 4 things that they want to tackle right away. So rest assured this is being talked about. We're hoping that we can make things work for everybody. There is a capacity there and we just need to be clever and smart about it. We also run at QMS the Scottish Butchers Club, which has 248 members, although I think I've got that wrong because Gordon gave a different figure this morning. I think it's higher than that. Gordon Newlands, the picture here and in the room over there, is our point of contact here, and he can give advice to anybody that wants it on this, make introductions to butchers, discuss local abattoirs, abattoir facilities, all that sort of thing. And he's quite happy to do that. So he's here and we can put anybody that wants in contact with Gordon. There are lots of challenges for butchers, as well as us. You know, the high energy costs, the cost of living, as you all know, are affecting them. And labour is a problem, as has been mentioned. And so one of the things that we've done at QMS is we've helped the development, alongside the craft butchers, of a butchery careers pathway. And we're working hard with them and with Skills Development Scotland on things like apprenticeships, because we absolutely recognise there's an issue there and we need to get more people into the profession, which is a highly skilled profession and is often not recognised that way. So butchers pay to be part of this Scottish Butchers Club, and they receive booklets and recipes and leaflets several times a year, which are made bespoke for them. You know, obviously this one, a Christmas one that butchers get, and they can put out on their countertops for their customers. And they help to explain the craftsmanship and the provenance that butchers have. Another scheme that we run is the brands licensing scheme. And this came about because there was, in the past, some unscrupulous use of our logos. People were sticking Scotch beef on there when it wasn't. And butchers are already licensed through the Scottish Butchers Club, but we realised that we needed something for those people selling direct who weren't butchers, and we came up with the brands licensing scheme. It's also a platform for us to keep track of who's selling Scotch. So it's free to join, as it says there. You do have to be QMS quality assured, and you do have to use a QMS quality assured processor. Those are the two. Those are the two conditions, but it covers all those people on that slide, and it entitles you to use the logos. You must adhere to our packaging guidelines, and you know, the logos have to be a certain size and things like that. And if asked, you have to provide proof that that is what you're selling. But it is free to join. There's a simple application form, and I would encourage as many of you as possible to do it, because it helps us help you. And one of the things that you get with that is PDFs to download of available recipes. There are stickers, there's videos and things to share online. Now, that's all free at the minute. The question is, would you as an industry, as a group, want to go down the route the same way as the Butchers Club have, of actually getting bespoke material that you could use in farm shops or in farm stays. I suppose the sector up until now probably hasn't been big enough for us to think about this, but if there is a demand there, we're absolutely up for having a conversation about that and seeing what we can do, and seeing how we can work together to help you sell things. Carcass balance has already been mentioned, huge challenge for everyone, from the largest processors right down to high street butchers and yourselves. Many butchers now don't get carcasses into their shops, they buy primals from wholesalers, and so they would struggle to sell the bits of the carcass that you would struggle to sell. So, you know, maybe in the past you've been able to get an animal killed and the butchers have been able to sell the liver and things like that. It's really difficult for them to do that now. So as Nikki was saying, that carcass balance piece is a really big part of it, and you've got to think about that when you're deciding. And we do have a website. The way we've tried to help with this is we do have we've just revitalised our QMS website, our consumer-facing QMS website, and there are places on there where you can put in the cuts and come up with recipes and ideas for what you can do with that. So trying to help with that, use the whole carcass message. We can also help with the profitability calculations. So again, it's been covered by the two speakers, how difficult pricing is. This is just an example of what we can help you with. Gordon is happy to go through costings with people to make sure that you're charging the right amount, to make sure that you are getting the return that you need to keep in business and to make sure that you're profitable. So this is, as I say, this is just an example, but this is the sort of thing, much like Nikki's spreadsheet, that we can run through with you if you'd like us to do that. We can also run, we have talked to Caroline about running a workshop on that basis if there's enough people who were interested, and again, Gordon's quite happy to do that, so we can take that forward with you in the new year. We do a lot of marketing. That's what 70% of the QMS budget is spent on, and we're marketing the brands. That's what we market. It's all based on consumer insight, and it's now always on. It's not just 3 big campaigns a year. It's on all the time, mostly on social media, but also on television, on food websites and magazines, and on home pages online. We've targeted about 70% of that spend at 18 to 39-year-olds, particularly the flexitarians who are questioning whether they should eat meat. And what I can see just when you're around speaking to people, people want to eat meat. They want to eat red meat. They like it. They like the taste. It's delicious. They just don't want to feel guilty about it. So if we can reassure them, they're being told by the media, you should feel guilty because of the environment, you should feel guilty because of animal welfare, you should feel guilty because of health. So what we can say is, if you eat Scotch, you can be guaranteed that the animal welfare is good. Don't worry about it. You know, we've got health statistics to show you don't need to worry about whether it's going to make you ill. It absolutely isn't. It's really, really healthy as part of a healthy, balanced diet. We've got all that proof behind the brand that we can use to reassure consumers. So that's what we're trying to do. So the social media, I have no idea how it all works, all these algorithms and things, but they absolutely target the people that are asking these questions to make sure that they get that reassurance. We use a lot of influencers to align with these values, to make sure that we're authentic and that people are saying real things about Scotch meat. You know, we're not just paying big celebrities to say anything, because we all know that they'll say whatever you pay them to say. And as I said, the focus is on the brands. And we do produce things like these little guides. I think there was one in the bag that everybody got yesterday. And they contain recipes, facts, health benefits, things like that. We hand them out at all sorts of different occasions, round about schools. We can certainly supply things like that to people to any of you, if you'd like to hand them out to your consumers. We're not allowed to market to under 18s, so we do have a separate health and education department who go into schools. I'm saying department, there are 2 ladies and they both work part-time. It's not huge, they can't get round every school in Scotland. But what they have done is they've developed a lot of online resources which other people can use in schools. They do go into schools when they can, but obviously they can't do everywhere. So they do have, we work with REC quite a lot as well to educate and inform children, not market to them. So Farming Food Steps is the bespoke website that we have, and it's aligned with the Curriculum for Excellence, and it's got lesson plans that teachers can download, but it's not just for teachers, it's for anybody. So if you're wanting any facts and figures or any sort of fun ways to get over those messages, then please go online and have a look at it and speak to us as well. And it's not just for kids. I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know, that there's an awful lot of adults out there who don't know the very basics at all. So use it as much as you can. That's what it's there for. That was the lockdown project when they couldn't get out into schools, and it's a fantastic resource. And if there's anything you think on there that we could add or is missing or is wrong, then please get in touch with us. We also produce industry toolkits for myth busting to get across key messages and promote positive conversations. We want to make sure this is a positive conversation, saying the things that we are good at, the way red meat is good for us all, not negative ones where we're just slagging off other people for things. So this is all about positive conversations. These toolkits come out either 2 or 3 times a year. They're available on our industry-facing website, so 2 different websites, but they're available on the industry-facing website for you to download and use to your heart's content. They've got infographics for posting on social media, they've got facts and figures, they've got things you can print off, and they're really, really useful just to make sure that when you're saying something, you're telling the truth, and they're all absolutely fact-checked. One of the things we can't do is say anything that is not true. So you can be assured that if you're using these facts and figures, they're correct. And finally, we want to work together with the agritourism industry. This is our consumer-facing website. Again, we have a page that links direct to the Go Rural website. Go Rural is advertised in every Scotch Butchers Club brochure, and in the last 18 months, we reckon that that's gone out to about 60,000 consumers via the butchers. So we want to work with you as much as possible. Our social media posts, we try to promote agri-tourism and Go Rural as much as we can. I'm sure we can do more. And we want to work together with all of you to sell as much as we can direct, because absolutely, it may not be a huge number or a huge value, but the halo effect of that really good reputation of that high quality Scotch beef, Scotch lamb, especially selected pork, helps us with the rest of our job in trying to get consumers to recognise the value of the brands. So Gordon is here, he's over there, he's sticking his hand up at the minute so everybody can see where he is. He's happy to speak to anybody, as am I, but Gordon knows much more of the technical details, so you're probably better to go to him. And thank you very much for having me here, and I hope I haven't bored you too much as the last speaker. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kate, and lots of inspiring work being done by QMS on the industry's behalf. Of course, we're all paying for that as red meat producers, so it's great to hear just exactly what's going on. I did pick up recently that ethical vegans have been given protected status, so I'm not sure how much longer Greggs the Bakers can incorporate them in their sausage rolls, but that's one for later. We've got some Slido questions, ladies and gentlemen, for you to all take part in. If you grab that QR code with your camera, I'll give you a second or two to do that. And then there's just 2 or 3 questions to get a flavour, if you'll pardon the pun, of people's engagement within with red meat and the on-farm offering in the room. So everybody's got that, hopefully. I'm just conscious of time. I'm going to press the button and move us on so we've got time for some other questions, he says. Okay. Question 1, are you a livestock farmer? Simple as, yes or no, if you wouldn't mind. So quite a big percentage of the room are livestock farmers, which I guess is typical of Scotland. It's 85% of our land is less favoured area, lends itself to the extensive grazing of suckler cows and sheep. So no surprise to see 2/3 approximately of you are livestock farmers in some shape or form. Thank you very much. I'm going to move on to the next question. So there we are. Someone else is pressing the button. That's great. Do you sell your own farm produce or plan to sell it in the future? And I guess this is central to the theme within the strategy to try and improve that number. So that started off very high, but they would like to in the future have caught up. So we're roughly half and half between those who would like to and those who would like to in the future of the ones in the room who are not farmers. So really interesting split there. What that demonstrates, I guess, is the opportunity that is there, not only for us as agritourism businesses, but for the red meat sector and for the processing sector to be making itself available for us within agritourism. I think there's a third question, if I can ask for that one as well. And what is holding you back, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you, I guess, who are not? So that's second 40%. What do you need to help you start selling meat through your farm, shop or farm agritourism venture? So a bit on knowledge, but mainly on logistics. And that's where the recommendation for the I forgot the terminology that you used for it, Kate, but the
contract and private kill coordinator.
Indeed, the coordinator, yeah, the private kill coordinator could well have a role to play. Okay, excellent. I think that's the last question we had there. Gives us a flavour of people in the room, and we'll now open the floor to general questions. If you put your hand up, please, and when the mic comes to you, say who you are and ask your question, either to all the panellists or any individual panellist specifically. Question at the very back of the room, on the right-hand side. Mic is coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Frida Scott Park, Portnellan Organic Farm. We've just recently had to take the decision to declassify our beef that we sell off the farm out of the freezer from organic to organically produced, because we cannot sell it. You know, we cannot find a processor, a butcher I like to call them in the old terms, to process for us efficiently that makes it possible for us to comply with all the demands of our certifying body. And that is really heartbreaking, because we're organic through and through. And do you know, if this coordinator role is to come to fore, please could you tell us what they're going to do for everybody in the room and how we can get to them? Are they going to be like an ombudsman, and are they going to be a mover and a shaker? Because boy, do so many people in this room need help. You just look at that dearth of abattoirs in Scotland and it just makes my heart break. We're very lucky, we're only 50 miles from Shotts. Shotts have always looked after our beasts extremely well. I would go back there even if it was slightly further away, but I just feel for the people who have to travel blooming miles. It's not great for the beasts.
Okay, great question, linked to the organic side in particular, but the general issue of abattoir provision. Kate, do you want to add anything else to that?
Yeah, so I mean, this idea is in its very embryonic stages. As I say, the strategy was only launched a few months ago, and the implementation group are working towards what comes next, but it is one of the top things that they are looking at. And I think the heartening thing is this suggestion came from the processing sector themselves. This wasn't farmers saying, we want you to do this, and then just say, oh, well, no, not really, it's not our thing. This is something they suggested. So it would be somebody who would basically do the logistics, who you would book your animals in with, and you would say where you were, and then they would look at the local provision and try and slot it in. So I suppose my vision, and this is just mine, would be, you know, maybe the abattoir in Bridge of Allen would be the last Friday of the month. It would all be private kill. Maybe the one at Port Latham would be the second Tuesday of the month, all private kill. Do you know, that sort of idea? Now, this is an idea. We don't know where this is going to go to, but that's absolutely the way that we would like it to work, and it is being taken forward. It's going to need funding, obviously. We're going to have to speak to government about that. We're going to have to see how that can all be done. It's at the very first stages, but it is an absolute priority. There is also the commitment from Scottish Government to increase the organic sector, and we have in our beef sector, in the beef sector strategy, the recommendation to work with the organic organisations to try and make that possible. So it's absolutely on the radar. So just be reassured that people are talking about this. And it would be great to get it done sooner rather than later, but as I'm sure you all know, a lot of these things take time, but we are definitely working towards them.
Well, every day is a school day for me, because I had not appreciated that actually the organic certification went so far as to the butchery element of it. And so, as I say, I take that lesson away for me, that it's going right to the very end of the process. Now, both Louise and Nikki spoke about their abattoir experiences, if I can call them that. Nikki, you've been with Shotts, I think, for quite a long time, and that worked quite well. And Louise, you've been with 5 different abattoirs, none of which were particularly local to you, other than perhaps the one in Inverurie originally. But so there's quite a bit of travel involved, which is not great for man or beast, if I can put it that way. But I guess ultimately it's about getting the service that fits in with your own needs at home. Do you want to add anything at all to that, Nikki?
Well, I guess the abattoirs are all doing a really good job, the ones that are working. We've had this discussion in our breakout session that I don't think the abattoirs are actually working to capacity, but it is the logistics around it that's really hard for everybody to work out, the distance we all need to travel, trying to get it back to butchers. So it's the whole thing, it's not just the abattoirs from beginning to end. I think there needs to be infrastructure.
Okay, and Louise, you've had lots of experience in different plants.
Yeah, I don't think I've got anything else to add to at this point.
Okay, that's excellent. Another question from the floor. Please put your hand up and we'll get a mic to you. Question in the middle at the back, and then one to the left over here. So middle in the back. Ladies' question, and then one down the front after that. Thank you.
Hi, Shona Duncan, Duncan Family Farms. I'm actually currently selling our own meat direct from the farm, but I've had a couple of questions. I've got one specifically for Nikki and one for Louise. So Nikki's Pasture for Life, I wondered, how can do you have grass-fed lambs available all year round?
We have grass-fed lambs available 9 or 10 months of the year, and we sell frozen for the rest of the year. There's quite a lot of stigma. People don't want frozen meat. As farmers, we don't want to get our meat frozen, but to be honest, if you get your meat frozen as soon as it's been butchered, it sits and it's presented a lot better. If you have frost-free freezers, if you sell your story again, you can sell frozen meat really well. It's not great, but I think my farm manager would actually quit if we lambed more than once a year. He's just about surviving on calving 3 times a year.
Okay.
Quick question, sorry. You mentioned a food and processing marketing grant. I wondered what body had provided that, and is there anything currently available?
I don't think it's open at the moment, but it was through the rural payments, and I think there is word of it maybe opening again. But I'm not sure.
The food processing and marketing grant scheme has been a phenomenal success. I did see the most recent round of it announced in the papers a few weeks ago, so we can only hope there'll be further rounds to come. It's done great things for this industry. A question down the front, and then we have time for one more after that, I think, because the chair is looking at me.
Lindsay Robertson from Long Island Retreats. A point to note for Kate, the island abattoirs are a key way forwards for us. There is a huge growing appetite for locally produced produce, and I think in missing those out, you're missing a huge opportunity in the future of farm produce going forwards. So certainly take that on board for your future plans. It's actually a question to Louise specifically. Louise, you guys did something quite innovative in starting your crowdfunding for the chickens side of things, and I think it's something that, when there's no capital grants available, is something that may be of interest to others and is something that's quite groundbreaking for the industry. Did it work? Would you recommend it? Is there any pitfalls to it?
It did work. It gave us a start to get the chicken project off the ground and things. At the time as well, we were kind of coming out of COVID, and it was good because everyone was still at home. But then when we had chickens becoming available after doing the crowdfunding. Everyone was away on holiday and things, so trying to get that chickens to people when they were away and everything, it has been logistically a bit of a nightmare. But yeah, we've kind of it certainly did. It was a good experience. I'd maybe do it slightly differently and maybe not have a time scale critical reward if I was doing it again. So yeah, and the chicken club, the monthly thing works really well as well, because we were taking a bit of a gamble, taking home 200 chickens monthly, and it was nice to this year knowing that we had an end outlet for those chickens. And I think everyone in the chicken club feels it's a bit exclusive, because we've not sold chickens at our markets or anywhere else. It's just gone exclusively to those that have signed up, and I know that will help going forward as well, because there's people that have missed out, and I'm sure they're going to sign up next year because they've not had the chance to get their hands on it this year.
And a whole other set of problems around chickens and bird flu, etc., which we haven't touched on and we won't be touching on. Kate, you had a question.
Can I just say, absolutely recognise that, Lindsay, totally. Gordon, unfortunately, is just one man. If we could clone him, we would, but he's here to make connections, so please speak to him. And we want to have that connection, but he is a bit stretched. Gordon, at the minute, trying to get around all of Scotland.
Actively engage with abattoirs, but it is all about communication as well. I'm heading to Stornoway tomorrow to do a demonstration for farmers and crofters on adding value to their lamb carcasses. That's the second time I've been over to Stornoway this year for a different set of farmers and crofters. So, anything like that we can do to help is absolutely key, and would welcome it. Okay, where's Flora from Mull? Are you in the room, Flora? Yep. Right beside the mic. Just to give you a comment on that, I know, Flora, that this is very close to your heart and the island abattoirs, and we heard already that Mull's operating on the mainland as well, which is amazing to hear. So just a little summary perhaps from yourself, Flora.
Yeah, I think, sorry, people are going to be bored of me going on about this the whole time, but I am obviously island abattoirs themselves, small-scale abattoirs particularly. It has to be seen that they are public goods, that they are a service that is a necessity for a farmer. And until Scottish Government have a way of protecting us, then we will continue a sort of hand-to-mouth existence. The Isle of Mull abattoir just now is in a position where if any of the machinery broke, we are having to go cap in hand to get the funds to replace that machinery and what have you. So it's really vitally important that this is at the forefront of everyone's minds when we're talking, to the likes of Kate, to the likes of the Scottish Government, that we have to keep the pressure behind this, because, we lost staff in September, we were closed in September. It was that kind of balance of will we reopen, will we not, and luckily we found the staff, we're up and running again, but it's such a fine line that we tread that we need protecting, basically.
Thanks, Flora. I mean, there are other models in other parts of the world. I've been to other countries where the abattoirs are state-owned, and the farmers and producers actually own the animal all the way through the process. They pay themselves for the slaughter and processing, and then it's the meat that's sold at the end. So the state-owned abattoir, I guess we're obviously as farmers paying for the processing at the minute, but it's hidden in the cost of the beast, the value you get back for the beast. So it's a more transparent system. There may be a role for a state-owned abattoir, although I cannot see either the Scottish or UK governments having, if you pardon the pun, the appetite to get involved in the industry. If there's one last question, I'll take it. If not, I'm going to hand over to Riddle. Is there a burning question for our panel? No? If not, can I thank you very much indeed, ladies, for the contribution this morning. Excellent discussion, and thank you for that.